Actually, Jeroen didn't get one.
The thing is that you have to use this one for recording, and you use both.
Okay.
And this will amplify, but you can just not use it if you feel that you're pretty loud. Yeah, it's most for those recordings. It's mostly for remote guys and for the guys on the area.
Do you think it was fine yesterday?
Yesterday it was pretty fine, yeah.
Okay,
So
then I can just pay attention to speaking loud enough, right?
yeah, okay, sure. So if you feel uncomfortable with this, of course, yeah. Is it clicker?
It's fine.
It's Markus's?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, don't turn it off. After.
It's actually nice. Yeah, the color scheme is nice. So, well, like, can you just like it has a laser pointer, but you can also connect it if you like. Can it have two mics? So we can both switch? Maybe it will get confused. I don't know. Does it have two USBs? Yeah, sure it does. If it crashes, it's your fault. But I can. Wait, don't connect. No, I don't. Look, but this works. I can have a mouse. Oh, I hope this one works. Okay. Now it has three mice, right? Yeah, you can never have enough mice. We can have a presentation for better. You go for. Yeah, but it's not fair. You have a. No, this one actually doesn't have a mouse. It just has a page. Yeah, this is like the sheet has one. Yeah, this is the nice one. Yeah.
If the remote guys will say that you're recording with sound,
Sure. Okay. Shall we? Yeah, so I can.
Markus got everything, and everything that we do done by Jeroen. You all know them from the name, and I think they will be delivered as
Thank you. That was the most kind introduction I have had so far, the most in the semantic web. Okay, yeah, welcome. So this is our standard every year talk about what is going on in SMW, what has been going on, what will be going on, past, present, future. And we will split it this year because indeed I'm not the one doing most these days. It's probably Jeroen. Okay, please.
Right, okay. So again, we have this nice web presentation. So can be helped that we have at least one pop-up in the presentation. So I'd like to start with just having a look at what's going on over the last year, basically since the last SMWCon here in Europe, regarding the development of SMW. So I have some nice statistics here. We had about 700 different commits, so contributions made to SMW by developers. By about 27 different developers over the last year, which brings us to a total of 58 distinct people that have contributed to the code since the start of the project. And although this might not seem like a lot to you if you're working in a company on a big project, it actually puts us easily in the top 10 of open source projects when it comes to amount of contributors. Also, having a look at our lines of code, this has been steadily increasing over the years. Last year we got 5,000 additional lines, which is not that much, but well, just steady progress. And the code analytic tools tend to call this a mature and well-established code base. I also have some highlights from extensions around SMW that have been doing particularly well over the last year. Semantic result formats had about 500 commits, which is over double of what it had during the 12 months before. So this is a huge increase. And not only did the commits increase, the amount of developers that contributed also doubled. And the same is almost true for the maps and semantic maps extensions. So it's been a great year regarding results format development, which I will talk more about from a user perspective tomorrow. One major thing that changed for us in the last year is that we migrated to Git from Subversion. And this is great because now everybody can just clone the Git repository, and now we can just have it hosted on multiple locations. For instance, I'm maintaining a copy of SMW on GitHub, but we of course have our canonical repository at the Wikimedia Foundation servers. And Carsten was awesome enough to actually go through the history and create the release tags of all our releases. So now if you clone the repository, you can just do git checkout and then the release number, and you're at that particular version, which is of course great for deploying stuff easily and just trying out different versions of SMW. And as you can see, we're now creating tags pretty frequently, so you can try out the new features without waiting for the releases always. Also, a lot of great stuff has been going on the SMW wiki, but I'm not going to talk about it too much because Carsten will be giving a lightning talk about this tomorrow, going more in depth. So yeah. One thing I would want to like to point out of this slide is the Wiki of the Month thing that we have going on. This started a bit before the last SMWCon here, and it's still going on. I think Desiree, who's maintaining the program, is doing a great job at picking nice and diverse wikis every month, which are great examples of how to use SMW. So if you're not familiar with it yet, check out the Wiki of the Month page on our wiki. It's also linked from the homepage.
And the file, of course, yourself.
Yes. We also did some work on the actual infrastructure we have for our site. It used to run on a box of a friend of Markus, to which Markus happened to have access. So now it's on a new server, which is paid for by the Open Semantic Data Association. So several people now have access, which is great because now we can do more frequent updates, which we're actually doing. So every 2 weeks or so, we're just updating from to the latest development version, which shows it's stable enough to actually do this if you have some idea of what's going on. Also, the box is faster, and we had a look at getting the caching right. So I think the current site is pretty snappy, which is always great, of course. And this is pretty recent. We have our Doxygen, which is the code generation. No, the documentation for the code generation back up and running since a week or two. Yeah. Oh. You can actually click on this if you have the presentation. I linked it at the start. Yeah, you can get also get a presentation at bit.ly/SMW 2012 with a dash in between, I think. And we don't have this yet, but this is sort of the next step of what we could do, and what several people have already talked about, is to have some more continuous integration support. for SMW development, which would involve stuff such as automatically running the tests, automatically building code coverage reports, and perhaps making nightlies. A while back, there was something on the mailing list about having images for Amazon Web Services, so people could just deploy an SMW instance. So this would fit in there. If you're willing to help out with that, then definitely speak up, because, yeah. Okay, I'll hand over to Markus here.
Okay, also maybe in addition to the various things about infrastructure and servers we did, our infrastructure is not just about SMW. We are interested in supporting the whole community, and also the Doxygen we have running is already documenting all kinds of extensions, not just SMW, and integrating that. So if somebody has something else to host or interesting service ideas which would be useful for supporting this or supporting the ecosystem in some way, we can also discuss that. So we have a server now, yay. New releases, yeah, so since last year, two new releases have happened. One is almost happening, and not quite yet. It was 1.7 early this year, with a minor update coming later, and since then there has been a long working on 1.8, which is also because of related Summer of Code project, which took the summer as expected. So it didn't seem right to make a release somewhere in between, but rather to finish that, and that's what we are about to do. About SMW 1.7, there are already some things I want to talk about. Some of you already know, some of you already use that. Sub-objects probably being the most important new feature coming in there, I think, from a user perspective. Took us some time to acknowledge that this is an important feature. Jeroen did a great job convincing us by making another extension that does something similar, the semantic internal objects, as it's called. And we then saw that this is not so easy to implement for an extension, and looked into how to really do it internally in the code. Why would you do that? Let me just give some more user-level presentation of that. Think about a statement like Meryl Streep played Margaret Thatcher in The Iron Lady. These are some slides I didn't manage to show yesterday, so it's good we have that talk today. So how would you actually model that in SMW? You could, of course, have two properties saying you have played role and played in, and you would say Meryl Streep played in The Iron Lady, and Meryl Streep played role Margaret Thatcher. But also, of course, since Meryl Streep played many things, she also played in Devil Wears Prada and played role Miranda Priestley there. So what you get in terms of this nice graphical image is something like that. 4 different properties, and of course, if you look at that, it's no longer clear, since there's no order involved, what is belonging to what, and it could as well be that Streep played Miranda Priestley in The Iron Lady. So you somehow lose this kind of information, which is necessary to associate that together. Now, if you wanted to solve something like that, what would be the possibility to do so in the old system? You would have to create an extra page to combine, to group these properties in a way, to say, for example, let's call that Streep's role in The Iron Lady, and we have a page about that, and all that page contains is something like role Margaret Thatcher film The Iron Lady, and we want to associate that from Streep's page by saying she played this new role, which we have created an article for. Now, obviously, this gives us a structure like that, which is capturing the information much nicer. You can imagine that there are other movies and other roles involved in each of them, and you can present it like this. But of course, doing that is a very cumbersome approach, and certainly not very nice for many reasons, because in part it would require you to create all these unnecessary pages that users wouldn't be very happy to come across when browsing the wiki. So this is not very nice, but of course the encoding in terms of properties is structurally the right approach here. And so in order to support that, we have now this nice sub-object function, with the idea being that instead of creating an auxiliary page, you can just make a sub-object. And this is like your virtual auxiliary page, which you don't have to create an article for, and you can just attach properties to. Sub-objects also can be named, just like pages. For example, usually we do that with such a hash. So for example, you could have a object called Meryl Streep # The Iron Lady. We intentionally have chosen this kind of naming convention because it allows you to have links to sub-objects to point to sections in the page. So if you use the same name that you use for a section in the wiki page, and you click on the link, it will actually give you the right anchor. And maybe we could even have other anchor style support for that in the future. And that's why the names always contain these underscores, because you can't have spaces in fragment identifiers in URLs. So this is how something like this could be called. And to do that in the wiki text, you can just write something like that, sub-object, the Iron Lady. I don't have to write the underscores here. It will be done automatically. I can also write them if I like. And two properties, role with value Margaret Thatcher, film with value the Iron Lady. So this is how you would do that. What you get is something like that. Same as above, same as before, but just with a sub-object here instead of a real article. Okay. Now, since these things are named, and you can actually point to sub-objects and from sub-objects. So, for example, if you want to point from the sub-object to its page, in this case the Meryl Streep page, you could say something like, you make the sub-object, and in addition, you say played by Meryl Streep. So you create just a normal property which links back to the page. That is not a problem at all. And on the other hand, you can also link to a sub-object by just saying something like played Meryl Streep hash the Iron Lady. So that is also something you can do anywhere in the wiki. So the sub-object for all means and purposes really acts like a page that you can name and refer to in any context that you like to use it in. Also, if you have many of these sub-object parser functions in one article and they refer to the same sub-object, it will be like if you would have added all of this in one call. So it will stack up on the same sub-object. Because it's a named sub-object, it can know that you refer to the same thing over and over again. So you can add data in many places to the same sub-object if you like. But always only to sub-objects of the page that you are currently on. That is a requirement. And of course, this is similar to the things we have in SMW anyway. About that, let me just check it. Okay. Now, by popular request, we have also recently introduced a new feature that allows you to do unnamed sub-objects. Some people said, okay, naming is nice, but it is cumbersome. We have to invent new names in our templates. That isn't always appropriate. So let us just do it without it. This you can do by doing this. And just leaving away the name, leaving it blank, will create an anonymous or unnamed sub-object. Obviously, you cannot point to this because it has no name. Internally, of course, it has some kind of name, but the name is generated from the data and has a hash-like form that nobody can read or remember. And it may also change if you change the data, or if we think it's better to create it in other ways, it will change. So this is not something you can address, even if you find a way to do that. We also took care that in every interface, this is not cluttering up things. So there's a different kind of handling for named and unnamed sub-objects in displays. So named sub-objects will actually show their name to the user, and unnamed sub-objects will hide this name. Currently, they will just show up like the page. It's not, that could be prettified, obviously, but at least you don't see any kind of strange hashes on the user interface. Now, I already mentioned semantic internal objects that you may know and maybe use, which was an extension and is an extension, which has done a similar functionality or tried to add a similar functionality to Semantic MediaWiki, like that. Set internal, then there was a property name given, and then you could get the information. And the idea was that this property here is used to link back to the page from which the sub-object comes. So it's actually the same as if you would write this. Make a new anonymous sub-object without a name, and make an explicit link back to the page that you're on. You could actually even put page name in here as a variable in MediaWiki. You don't have to write the actual page name. And then the rest is the same. So this is completely synonymous, and it would be easy to implement a function that abbreviates this call to this if somebody wants to have that using the same mechanism. Internally, it will all be the same. And there are actually, you can imagine many different interface functions to create such sub-object. If you come up with other things which you find useful, it would be easy to add that or to do it yourself locally. I mean, that's not a problem. The important thing is that Semantic MediaWiki now has a uniform internal handling for all these objects, and they are all compatible with each other, and they are not going to be deleted when you refresh data. And whatever you use in order to create them, it will always be the same data in the end. Okay, so this was it about sub-objects. Then another thing which has evolved a lot in the recent year are page metadata properties. We used to have modification date as an early example of that for quite some time without really changing. And in last year, we also got more properties called creation date, last editor is, and is a new page, which are all about the obvious thing that you could say about a page as an article, as opposed to the subject that the article is about. So that's why I call it metadata. It's not about the population of Berlin is about the city of Berlin, but the modification date, of course, is not about the city of Berlin, but about the page that describes the city of Berlin. So it's data about data, metadata. These things come at a cost because, first of all, you create a lot of property values, which you may not want or need. And also, they have to be written and updated all the time. So if somebody makes an edit, even if nothing changes in Semantic MediaWiki, it will change the modification date. So there are more database rights. That's why we have made it so that it can be disabled or enabled at your own discretion by setting this type of thing in your local settings. So there is a global variable to say which properties do you want, which special properties, and this would enable all of them. So with the obvious mapping, modification date, creation date, new page, last editor. You can delete any of them if you don't want them to be generated. Okay. Compatibility, general things, we are always moving forward. So we drop compatibility with very outdated and old versions of MediaWiki. We increase compatibility with new versions and the development version. In this next release, we are going to drop MediaWiki 1.16 compatibility, which will also help us to improve or simplify some of the code because many things became more efficient and more clean in MediaWiki, and we can't use all of this because we still need to support the old things, which will just go away. And on the other hand, we get support for anything which is currently done. So 21 is the one which currently is in the development, which is already quite a range. I mean, normally one could say maybe that not that many different versions should be supported, but it's in this case not a big pain for us to do M1.17. I already mentioned Summer of Code. We will have another talk on this because this is another major change in the upcoming release. But this Nisha is going to explain. So this was a Summer of Code project we had this year with very promising and successful results. But we will hear about more of that soon. And now I give back to Jeroen for this part of the speech.
Yeah, I'm going to go over another few new nice improvements we have in the upcoming 1.8 release. One of them being a set of improvements to the Ask user interface, which I actually would like to demo, perhaps. Well, yes, go away. So, well, we have better documentation now on the Ask page because all the parameters have descriptions now. But also now there is a new link that will actually point to smw.org to the documentation about a specific result format which has been selected, which you can turn on or off. And work has also been done on making it less cluttered. Now there are two options. One that enables having such a pop-up instead of having all the text being shown on the page, all the descriptions already shown on the page. So, and another option that allows the options to be collapsed by default, so then you can expand it instead of always immediately seeing everything. And right now, this is off by default, and there are two user preferences that allow you to turn this behavior on. So I'd like to use the opportunity to get to show you this and to get some feedback on it, and based on that, turn them on by default or leave it off by default. So I currently have both options on. So as you can see here, the parameter options are collapsed by default. And to get the description, you need to hover over it. So these user options you can find under your preferences, such as all the other options in MediaWiki, with a new tab SMW and the two options. So if I unclick these, I will get the old behavior back. Which, as you can see, is a bit more verbose and has all the descriptions here, especially with formats that actually have a lot of parameters. So, can I have a quick show of hands? Who prefers the old format? So this one. Now, don't be shy. Okay. I guess people are a bit too shy to vote on it, unless everybody thinks the new way of doing it is better. But okay.
You should ask that as well. Yeah, there are always people who sleep.
Okay. Who prefers to have the options turned on by default to hide the things and to have it show as tooltips? Okay, I'm surprised then, and we'll do that in this case.
Another remark, as you can currently see, there's some redundancy here. Limit, offset, sort, all the stuff has other UI elements. It shouldn't really show up here, so I think we can even unclutter that a bit further to not have parameters twice.
Yeah, that's a minor UI tweak. Yes, the messages are internationalized, so yeah, you will get the messages in the language you have set. Also, the tooltips have been improved. We used to have suboptimal tooltips that didn't increase their size when there was a lot of content, and had some other issues as well. And this has now been rewritten to use some nice tooltip library. And it's done in such a way that it's used at different places, that it's reusable, and it's used in different places in SMW now. For instance, you just saw it on Ask, but it's also used for warnings. It's used in the new calendar format, and several other places. Actually, if you click the link, if you go here, you can actually see several examples of this. Yeah. We also also some work was done on the Ask API. I presented this at the last SMW Con here in Europe when it was still in alpha. And in the 1.8 release, it will be released as stable, so it should not change in a breaking way in the future. And two important things we added since the last SMW Con here is support for sorting and continuation, which are rather basic things you tend to need, so you now have them. The JSON result format has been updated to match the format that the Ask API provides when you get JSON from it, because people liked it more. So now you can also get this just via Ask or special Ask. But of course, we care about compatibility, so you can still get the old output format by providing this parameter to the Ask query.
quick question: who actually knows about the API? Who's using the API for something?
Yes, this is an improvement that's mainly done in the backend and cleaned up a lot of code. But as a user, you can see this as, well, if you have an ask query somewhere and it has additional results, it typically shows a link, show further results, and then links to special ask. And special ask itself allows to page to more results. And this used to be done with specific code for each result format, which tended to be incomplete, inconsistent, and buggy overall. So this is now gone and completely generic. So now it should work nicely for all the result formats. Another thing we're very happy to have now, at least to some small extent, are unit tests. So this facilitates finding bugs and not releasing them without noticing they are there.
Only release bugs that you know of.
So this is still in the beginner phase. We're still trying to add more tests, especially when we're adding new code or fixing old bugs. And I know that people in the community have additional tests built on top of SMW that they do for releasing their own product on top and making sure there are no bugs. And yeah, it'd be great if you could contribute some to the core SMW project, which would make it a lot easier for us to ensure quality and speed up development. So Markus already mentioned that the SMW 1.8 release is very near on the horizon. But we're already looking at the SMW 1.9 release and have, well, which is planned for the first quarter of 2013, and which already has a bunch of changes sitting on our code review tool awaiting until after 1.8 has been released. And some of it even has already been documented on our wiki, some cool new features. And we'll also continue the trend of dropping support for old software. So in this case, that will be MediaWiki 1.18, and we'll also drop support for PHP 5.2. Some work we're planning to do on the backend is make use of some libraries that allow us to share functionality with other tools. The data value one is one that's currently being developed as part of the Wikidata project. And once this is completed, we can use it in SMW as well to replace some of our current code. And once we drop the support for the old PHP and MediaWiki, we can also do some cool things in the backend to make it just better. I'll not go into deep on that. So, of course, the big question is, which features would you like to see? Which is the question we're asking every year on the roadmap thing. So, yeah. Are there any particular features that you would really like to see in the next SMWs?
One thing would be very helpful on the thing to actually control the name of the page of the interface. For example, you can say page called 12345, and actually about something else, about the content of the page. And then if you use the drill down and so on, you will see, this is the name of the page, but you don't know what this is the page. So if you have a wiki which is basically learns with numbers, the future numbers content page, it would be nice that we have be able to control the display of some content in interface.
may I ask why you don't just call the page like what you would like?
For example, in your database, they can be generated names.
Yeah. Okay.
So I have continuous numbers of content, and I would like to have the main name of the page is not generated as the number of the content, but the one class is called blah 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 blah, and I want to see and feature where you can say, the page actually is the text or the content is the name. Let's talk about a page about me. I'm number one in the wiki, and I have a property called name that comes off mine. So perhaps it would be nice to have a feature to be built out. If I have this property, then for the name of the property instead of the name of the page.
This is something you can do at some places. For instance, in ask queries, you can, in tables, where you can specify that the name should be the value of a property. But this really depends on the interface using the data. If the interface doesn't support this, well.
Anyway, we should take care of we should be careful with our time a bit, because otherwise it's going to shrink remaining for time. Impolitely, but point taken. I think there are some things that could be done there. So thanks for the input. Other feedback also regarding the changes that we have discussed. And of course, there's always one way, if you have a more complex feature to advocate. You can always think about giving a lightning talk. Stand up, 3-minute presentation why you think this feature is crucial. And should be supported, and why we should invest our time making it. Yuri had something there.
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
So, reasoning inference in Windows because nowadays we can make inference on Windows, and it's somewhat unintuitive.
Okay, point taken. I mean, actually, with the new store, the request should sometimes be inferencing in ask, because some of this is actually still not quite solved in the new layout. Yeah, okay, good. Also, just as an inspiration, you have seen we can have user-specific preferences. If you think that users should have more control over certain things, it's also something we could actually easily make happen. And we have discussed many other things. There was, yeah, just.
Actually, just to kind of, it sounds really exciting, actually, the sub-objects feature, but the thing that kind of occurred to me is, could it not be interesting if somehow by making a section, like it seems like you could just say that a section, you sort of reify a section, and then that any properties within the section would naturally refer to the sub-object, that is that section. I mean, I don't know, it seems like it could simplify the...
Yeah. Problem is the parser. The parser is, I mean, a section is just something occurring someplace in the code. There's no block around it and no specific handling. Not sure if there's any clean way to support this type of thing. I'm also not sure if we want to encourage this really, that people use sections and annotate them. I mean, at some point you can just really have a new page. But yeah, good point. Transclusion would work, yes. You could make that page and transclude it, and it would become a section, yeah. Indeed. Yeah, the question was just, yeah, you can do that. But the question was just, could it be done so that every annotation in that part of the wiki text becomes automatically associated with that section subobject, which is a bit difficult for some reasons. But I mean, one could at least think about having an extension. In the end, that would again boil down to having a parser hook that does some kind of something like that. Yeah. Okay. You can ponder new features a bit more. I think it's time to start the next talk. We will have more opportunity to have discussions later on. So that can always be done. Thanks a lot.